Coaching in Session,
your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
There is a power when you are looking for the one person that you can call your own in your life. Your husband, your wife, your boo, or girlfriend or boyfriend, your soulmate. All of these words are just synonyms to finding someone that you can resonate with. And our world is filled with opportunities today in the dating world. But just because we have all of these tools and technologies like these dating apps that we can find someone in a different country or nation that maybe we might have never visited before. And we can find someone who is inclined with being with us, and not just being with us because they want a change of life or change of pace, but because they truly want to create what we would like to create. And maybe that is family. Maybe that is creating a bond that is going to stand the test of time. I understand that we can find someone that we get butterflies with and that we like and that maybe we can even tolerate for a period of time. But that is not what finding the one is. Finding the one is accumulation of many different facets of mindset and what you need to do and understand. The first thing is, we talked about this quite a bit, is you need to understand who you are as a person. Because if you don't understand who you are, how can you open up to someone when they're trying to figure out who you are, to figure out if it's a good match? I'm not saying that you need to figure out everything about yourself, because as time progresses and as you age, you're going to go through different developmental processes and different life journeys that might influence you to think or act in a certain way. This is not to say, hey, you're not the person that someone marries if you go down a personal development journey and all of a sudden you're a different person, right? Most people, they remain the same. But then some people, they just kind of are the shell of what they formerly were. This happens typically in a deep depression or a bit of not taking action. So someone just kind of stays where they are. And in a relationship, you don't want to stay where you are. You want to grow. You want to keep on progressing. You want to keep things new. Maybe you go to new restaurants, you keep things alive, you communicate. Maybe you have kids and you do things with the kids. This is to say that most people, they just think a relationship is, hey, I like you, you like me. Let's make some babies and be happy together. I wish that was as simple as, 1, 2, 3. But the reality is most people that are looking for the one or looking for a relationship, it's going to take some time. And it's not going to be typically the first person that you find. Now, of course, you can get lucky, like a high school sweetheart that you are so madly in love with. And typically why that happens is because the love is so new. And the love is refreshing because maybe it's something that you crave. For anyone who's young, 15, 16, 17, 18, this love might feel perfect, but it could be imperfect. It could be toxic. It could be dangerous, right? Dangerously in love. This is not to say that, you shouldn't marry your high school sweetheart or you should date in high school. All of these things these situations are stepping stones or foundation blocks for you to understand what you want and what you don't want. As I said, you have to figure out what you want in yourself. Typically, this is going to be stemming from your values, your systems, what you would like to accomplish in your life goals. And then you kind of find someone who either A, is going to support those ideals, or maybe have similar ideals in their own right. Maybe someone doesn't want to have kids, but you do. That could be a deal breaker, right? You're not going to just say, okay, I guess I'm not going to have kids now because my soulmate doesn't want to have kids. Well, maybe they weren't meant for you. So you have to find a person that it just feels right. It just feels like this has always been. It's very similar to this idea of when you meet someone, it's just like, they're the person for you. Of course, you have to kind of get away all of the butterflies and all of the physical attraction, because you might like how someone looks, like, oh, I really like how this person looks. I like how they speak. I like their money or their demeanor, whatever it is that you are naturally attracted to. It doesn't necessarily mean that that natural attraction is going to be key to longevity. The key to longevity is looking at the values, is looking at the systems, communication, right? Just being there and building that, right? The journey of the relationship is not just so much of, all right, we went on a honeymoon, we're going to live happily ever after. I know in movies, that's what you see, but you don't see the hard parts. And sometimes there's a comedy movie or something where the wife and the husband are arguing and their kids are doing all the wrong things and something like that. And you might say, oh, that's so realistic. But then maybe somewhere at the end of the movie, the love is rekindled. And that could be what your relationship is like right now. It could be very chaotic. It can be insecure. But this is all to say that you don't have to settle for something like that. You should be comfortable in your relationship, but not comfortable in your relationship where you're not demanding growth from the other person. If you're living outside, for example, as an extreme example, you're probably not going to be with someone who's going to want to live outside in 5 years or 10 years, unless maybe, sure, right? You're digital nomads or something like that, and you just love camping in the outdoors and you have like a very hippie lifestyle and you don't want to live in your car or something, right? It's very possible that that could happen. I know what people do is if they do transition from a home or being on the streets and they go into a car perhaps, and then from the car they go into like a small home or something like that. Sure, you can figure out your lifestyle and what you want, but just because you want that doesn't mean that everyone else is going to want that. But then again, you might find someone who has the same ideals, like, hey, I want to live in a tiny home and I want to travel, or I want to live in an RV and I want to travel, right? You can find someone like that, but it's more than just what they want to do with their life. It's what they want their life to represent. And this is where it gets to the mindset aspect, because what happens in a relationship, especially like when it gets to the hard parts, is there's going to be a reason or an opportunity given. The opportunity is allotted for people who may have money, people who have good looks. It can happen for a woman quite easily. The opportunity to go out and find somebody, right? For men, it's a lonely journey sometimes when they're trying to figure out, well, who is going to be with me, especially if I feel like I'm nothing. Confidence could be key there, but then you also have to have a vision and you also have to have a plan. And that plan has to be taking action to some degree. Maybe you just have business cards and the business is nothing right now, but it could be everything in the future, especially if you have to drive for it. I think of people like, I forget the guy's name. He owns some gyms. He's a big speaker now. He did a bunch of clips on YouTube, but basically in the start of his relationship, it was rocky. They didn't know where money was coming from. There was a lot of failures, but yet that woman stayed with him. And sure, she had the opportunity, I'm sure, to go wild. She probably had the reason to leave him, but she didn't, right? Why didn't she? Maybe she was a person who just didn't know how to differentiate between the love from someone good and proper to someone not proper, right? So it could have been one of her first loves. But then that's just to say, like, is that an excuse for someone not to take action, or an excuse for someone to run away when things go bad? Many people, when it comes to a relationship, they will leave when the going gets tough. Well, if you have someone who's willing to leave, then they're not for you, right? I like to say this mindset here, and this is something I have been working on for a couple of weeks now to help people figure out like how to find the one. And the idea is you give them a reason to leave, but they find every reason to stay. And I'm going to say that again because it's so powerful. The best ways to find someone that's the one for you is that you give them a reason to leave. And that reason could be anything. Of course, if you have done the work with them in the beginning of the relationships and you created expectations and you created no-go zones. So for example, infidelity could be a no-go zone. And if you cheat on that person to whatever degree, it could be emotional or physical, maybe that's grounds for you separating from that individual. But if you don't have that conversation, the expectation is not there, then how would a person know what is allotted for them? And you might say, Michael, that's common sense. You shouldn't go around sleeping with people. But then again, how many people do? Right? So either it's not common sense or people just don't care. I think what happens more often than not is the latter, is that they don't care. Because if they're trying to fill a void, they're caring about themselves. They're not caring about the relationship anymore. Because the second aspect is not opportunity, it's a reason. I'm doing something because I need a reason, right? And then the second option is a reason. They have a reason for doing whatever they did. If they were looking for love, or if they were looking for some affection or emotional attachment, or they were just looking for someone to say that they cared, or that they loved them, or that they looked nice or smell nice. Like it could be those small things, right? That right there could be their reason for stepping out. Of course, maybe you're at the bar, you've been drinking a little bit. I'm not saying that the reason for you to do that is valid. I'm not saying that if you found someone who just wants to be with you, the opportunity there is valid, because guess what? There's going to be many temptations in life. And there's going to be many people who might try to get in the way of something good. I can't tell you how many people, they would love to be homewreckers because it would make them feel better. And this is not to say that people who are listening to the podcast are homewreckers, but it's important for you to be aware of what type of people are out there, the mindsets of people. Think of insurance fraud, of how many people will swipe someone, or they'll brake check someone so the person rear ends them. And if you don't have a dash cam, it's going to be your fault. So these aspects and these ideas of, well, we're trying to do the best that we can, but then there's going to be obstacles in life. And those obstacles are going to definitely be the precursors to helping you figure out who is the person for you. Now, finding the one, as I said, is going to be a mindset. It's going to be mixed with how you view the relationship, to the longevity of the relationship, to even this idea of the values that you have and they have, and if it's a mix for the two. All of these can be magic to help you find the one person that you should be with. I think it goes even a step further than just you. I believe that you should have a trusted individual, a friend, a colleague, a mentor, a guide. And typically, if I had to recommend someone for the job, and I'm not going to toot my horn or saying me, but you should have like a guide or a coach that can say, hey, I can see the blind spots that you have, and I can see the blind spots that they have, and I can see the behavior that someone is exhibiting, and I can say if it's going to be a good fit for you. And I can see if there's going to be possible problems, and I'm going to coach you and prep you before they even happen. This is so important, because you can have all this, like all the check boxes filled, and they are everything that you ever wanted. And maybe you're everything that they ever wanted. And you might say, this is the perfect mix, the perfect match. But maybe somewhere, someday, they did something kind of made you feel, I'm not sure about that. You maybe are going to inquire about it, but you don't inquire too much, right? Maybe you call it a one-off, but then they give you another hint to something else, something along those lines. Think of like you go on a date with someone and they're rude to the waiter. That can be a red flag for someone, but then again, it could just be that they had a rough day. Because if my wife was rude to the waiter or something because he spilled soup on her, hot soup, I'm not going to say that she's being rude to the waiter for no reason, right? Maybe she, has a valid reason. But I'm sure the meal is going to be comped or something along those lines. And if she needs medical care, we have to go, and there's going to be an insurance claim, right? So like we can go down those roads of worst case scenarios. But I'm talking about the best case scenarios, right? Like finding the one. It shouldn't necessarily be perfect in the beginning. There's going to be moments where you feel like you're in high school again, and you're talking on the phone, and it just feels so natural, and it just feels like you're talking to your best friend, and you're just like having the best time in the world. It will definitely feel like that. But then it will also feel like you want to run. You're like, I don't know about this. Like, this is one of those things, like it's like a sixth sense, and you're like, yeah, they're kind of picky. yeah, they are not doing what they need to do or whatever. Sometimes they're a slob. They don't smell nice or something like that. All of these things are superficial. So when you're looking for the one, I want you to separate the things that are superficial and the things that will change versus the things that are harder to change. An individual as like a personal development standpoint is difficult to change. A person will not change for the wrong person, right? They will change for the right person. They could change for themselves, but they won't change unless there's going to be some type of inhibitor for that change to happen, right? So they have to have something that is going to encourage that change. If everything is going good in their life and they don't have to change, they won't. I remember when I was dating and I was working odd jobs and things like that. And this is like 2017. And I was going out with some nice girls, like good family girls that I'm sure would have been great assets, so good wives, good girlfriends. But then I don't even blame them because I was still going through my figuring out what I wanted to do stage after I was done with teaching. They can see that, hey, this person, as nice as they are and as, well mannered as they are, their ambition, even though it's there, it's still flustered, right? It's not focused yet. This was going back to now the mindset of you don't want to be with a person that you can give any reason for them to leave and they leave, right? It's like, oh, the reason why is because you're not focused enough on your career, or you're not focused on the idea of long term, right? Starting a family, things like that. At the time, I wasn't, right? But today, I'm sure if maybe I started with one of those relationships again, it would probably lead to something longer. But then again, I know what I want quite well. So they would have to check those boxes too. So it's not so much about me fulfilling what they want. And then all of a sudden, everything happens. It's that I have some boxes, you have some boxes, and we need to get 7 out of 10 minimum. And if we don't get that, then it's not going to work. Because what's going to happen if you have 6 out of 10, you're going to supplement those other 4 pieces that are missing. And this is where a lot of infidelity happens because they're looking, or they are finding a reason for, hey, this person is missing some qualities that I will like. And the qualities don't have to be about, oh, they're 5'5" and they're or 6 feet tall and they have 6-pack abs and they're super in shape and have a lot of money and they smell nice and they don't put too much makeup on. I mean, we can go down the list of different traits that a person can have or things that we might look at as a parents and say we are favored to this. This is to say that the superficial things are come and go. Those things can change. Because if a person is wearing a cologne, right? You like a guy, you just don't like his cologne. Well, let's say we change his cologne to your favorite one. Could you say you don't like the guy anymore? And the answer is yes, you can, right? What is that? And then we go in a little bit deeper. Maybe you say they're a slob eating. And I go, okay, well, maybe if we put him in etiquette classes and he learned how to eat and use his fork and knife better, could you love him? And the answer is probably not, right? So we go down the list of all the superficial things, all the things that you're saying that's on the top bracket, where you're just kind of saying it was kind of like this, kind of like that. And it could be big red flags, and that could be adequate enough for you to say on to the next one. But it could just be that you don't necessarily know how to look at if a person is truly yours, right? This is how you find the one. And you find the one by not just doing the things that bother you on top of everything. Is can you get down to the soul? Can you get down to the meaning? Can you get down to the mindset? And so the questions that you ask the one or the person that you're trying to be with goes beyond the first couple of dates. The first couple of dates that you're on with somebody are going to be super surface level, right? It's going to be dealing with opportunity. It's going to be dealing with reason. It's going to be dealing some with values. It's going to be dealing some with alignment with yourself and where you want to be in your life. But it's also going to be a feeling of does this feel nice? Does this feel natural? But then you have to be paying attention to all of the little things. And I'm talking about all of them. Because if you see that they're super sweet to you, Maybe they're super sweet to your friends, and then like maybe even super sweet to the waiters or something like that. But then like one day they're just like malicious and they're like, I'm going to go slice their tires or something like that. It's like, hey, where did that come from? Right. I thought you were someone who had their actions down packed. And all of a sudden you get this outburst, right? Those can be getting down to the mindset of like, why would you go so far to get physical? Of course, you're not getting physical with a person slashing someone's tires, but it's still an act of violence in a sense. So this is all to say that it could be those small things that maybe turn you off and maybe turn someone on, right? It's like, oh, I like how feisty you are. I like your fire. Women, when it comes to men, for example, they might want a guy who's stronger and knows how to fight. So they might say that's a turn on because biologically they are looking for someone who can protect and provide for them, right? Now, we live in a world where the protection and providing are not necessarily needed because women can go out and get their own careers and they have home and we have police. So most of the ideas for someone to find someone is that they have to be willing to want to build something with somebody. And this is the last key point here, because if you don't want to build with somebody, it doesn't matter who or what qualities or what type of mindset they have, because you're not going to want to do it. Now, this is to say that you might have given your mindset of, I don't want to be with a person. I don't want to build something. I don't want to have a family. Maybe somewhere down the road, those views change, right? And it's just in that season of your life, you look for somebody in that season. I'm not going to say that if you're in spring, you should be looking for someone in the fall or vice versa. You should be looking for someone in your season of life, because when you're young, I know an excuse that happens quite often is that I was so young, I didn't know what I wanted. And the reality is you just didn't look far enough to where you might have thought or felt like you would be. Because maybe if I say, hey, you're 18 years old, at 32, would you like to be married to a guy who works at McDonald's making $14 an hour? The answer would probably be no, right? Because you know that you would probably want someone more ambitious, especially after 30. At least they have a career or something where they can get insurance for the kids or something along those lines, right? This is just talking about career and jobs. It's just one aspect, is one piece of the puzzle. But there's many pieces when you're trying to find a one. When you're looking for a change in your relationship status from being single to in a relationship to maybe being in a relationship to engaged and then being engaged into married, it's a different mindset in every different season of that relationship. I believe that not everyone is ready for marriage, or not everyone is ready to be in a relationship, and you have to be able to gauge that, because not everyone's going to have the maturity to be in a relationship, especially at an early age, because they don't know. Maybe they had a broken family system, so they don't know. Them finding the one might come from a lot of bad choices or a lot of bad examples. So the last bit is you have to give yourself good examples. You can look at relationships that have stood the test of time. You can go online and figure out who has been married the longest. I think one of the celebrities, they've been together like 7 years or maybe 12 years. They're getting divorced because differences or whatever, right? I'm sure if they did the work, they could stay together, because there's people like, I think Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys are still married. We can go down the list of people who are still married because they have a different mindset. Halo, for example, she has a mindset of like, if I don't feel like I'm loved and I'm not appreciated, I'm leaving, right? The reason. She always has an opportunity, right? Big star, decent in shape for a woman her age. And so she can go out and get a plethora of guys, especially guys who have money. Not so much she needs to stay in a relationship if she's not satisfied in it. Most likely, if she's not happy, she's leaving, she's running. And you have to ask yourself, if you're a guy, would you want that type of woman? Very similar to that mindset I told you earlier. You give them any reason to leave, but they find every reason to stay. When you commit yourself to something more than just boyfriend and girlfriend or a fling, you're looking for the one, right? Someone who's going to be ride or die till death do you part, right? The end. That right there requires that type of mindset where it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how things are going right now. We'll figure this out. And so if you can find someone who has that mindset of we can figure this out, if you can find someone with this mindset of we'll get through this together, no matter how dark or no matter how hard, then that's going to be someone that you can say is the one. It might not be easy to find that individual because we live in a world where if things are broken, we can just replace them so easily, where we want instant gratification at every single turn, where we think that someone else should be making us happy because we are the prize or we are this entitled person. There's many mindsets that have happened throughout the years, and the mindsets that we're living with today are extremely toxic for a relationship. So you have to do the work to get rid of those toxins or to get rid of this idea of what a relationship is and what a relationship should do. Because finding the one is not as easy as going on a dating site or two and then hoping the right person sends you a message. There's a lot more pieces to the puzzle that come after that. So if you're willing to do the work to find the one, look in the mirror first to figure out who you are, where you're going, and what you want. And then from there, you can look at another person for who they are, for their baggage and their mirror. It's not to compare, but to understand. And if you can understand a person, no matter who they are, where they're going, or what they have done, and you feel like this is right, then maybe we can call them the one. But it takes time, it takes focus, it takes a mindset that no matter what reason I give them or what reason they give me, this is going to last forever. And that could be the mindset to finding the one.